G'day, I'm Trev, a proud son of a Vietnam veteran. My guest, Michael Tapping, says he wants the world to know the truth about everything relating to the Vietnam War and its effects on the servicemen and their families. He says some of the history books have it wrong. Michael is joining us from Sydney, New South Wales, here in Australia. Good afternoon, Michael. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Trevor. My pleasure, mate. It's always a pleasure to chat with you.
Let's begin by introducing your dad, John Charles Tapping. What can you tell me about growing up with a Vietnam veteran as a dad, and what were the home dynamics like? Also, were you close to your siblings?
So, my brother and my sister and myself, we've all suffered some mental issues in regards to our 22 months living in Vietnam during the war. My brother and my sister, neither of whom have acknowledged that fact. But they live in denial from that. And I'm sure there are people out there who understand what I mean by that. Yeah, we don't get on very well. I haven't spoken to my brother for about 5 years. My sister always trying to bully me as the younger brother, and I won't accept that anymore. So she talks to my wife, doesn't talk to me directly. She uses a third party to get a message to me. But as with my father, living with Dad was no drama at all. And I believe that that's because we all experienced the traumas together. So it wasn't something that he experienced and then brought back to our house. We'd all been there. We'd all suffered, I suppose, in different ways, different traumas. So there wasn't a noticeable impact on the house. Probably because we all just thought that it was normal, because we probably all, well, I know in hindsight, I was probably thinking the same way. But back then, I think people have to understand, through the 70s and 80s, we had no idea the effects of such events would have on us. And nobody did, even into the 90s. So the PTSD, which leads to depression and anxiety, that was just sort of a part of normal life for us living. And I know in my own head there, a lot of the time, I just thought it's just me. I have anger issues, or there's something else that's causing this. I never thought about what happened in Vietnam, our experiences and such like that.
What age were you? Because you were born before the Vietnam War started, is that correct?
Yeah, I was born in 1963. So yeah, that's the day we flew out of Sydney. It was on my 6th birthday. Wow. The soldiers like your father and other people's fathers and that who went to Vietnam as 19, 20, 21-year-olds, they went through everything, but they had that 18, 19, 20 years of their life where they grew up and had that part of their life. I see it now as part of my major problem and my brother and sister's problem is that we were children. So I only had 6 years of my life before I was thrown into this particular stage, which ended up being, to me, I'll never regret it, don't get me wrong, but it's been a traumatic experience as I've grown up. My father worked for the embassy over there as his official title was Assistant Attaché for the Australian Embassy. But he had a lot of dealings with all the different allied governments that were based in Saigon. Yeah, our dog that we picked up along the way, Sing Mai, dog's called. But that's me in the front there, my brother in the back, and that gentleman patting the dog, his name was Rang Hall. He was a CIA operative.
Wow.
A very, very close friend of my father.
All this is over there in Vietnam. How close were you to the actual action? I mean, could you hear bombs dropping and everything going off when you were young?
Yes. Okay. There's a couple of things that may shock people, and I know it shocked some people in Vietnam when I went back later and spoke to them about it. Coochie, the Coochie Tunnels is about 60 kilometres northwest of Saigon. When quite often they would drop their ordnance on the tunnels, the American B-52 bombers would drop what was left on the tunnels at night when they're coming back. You could feel the rumbling in the ground in Saigon.
Wow.
The amount of bombs that would drop. So it's a bit like an earth tremor in that respect. You feel that occasionally. There was one time not far from our house where we lived, there was a truck depot. One night we were woken up by this massive explosion about 3 o'clock in the morning where somebody tried to blow it up. The next morning, we actually walked past it on the way to the British Embassy pool. And you go, oh, that's what that noise was last night. There's this massive crater in the ground. It's there. And occasionally you'd be woken up by the sound of rockets during the night. And the scary thing about that, which I found out later, I just go, oh, what's that? And Mum would just go, oh, it's okay, nothing to worry about. I never thought too much about it, but she told me later, she said that she was terrified every time she woke up. Wow. One thing with rockets is they used to fire them in salvos of 6 at a time.
Right.
So you wouldn't know which one woke you up.
Oh, so if it was 1 or 4 or 5 or the last one. Right.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And then you didn't know which direction they were coming or going. So Mum used to lay there terrified every night and she's waking up, and I'd wake up to it and you just hear this, I can't really do the sound of it, or you see this thing going through the sky and you just go, oh, okay. Like I didn't know what that was as a child.
That alone, just that story alone of the bombs going off and you're waking up in the middle of the night with that would have to have some lasting effects on you. Can you go and watch fireworks and hear loud bangs without thinking or mind going back to those loud noises when you were a young boy?
There was a period of time in my life where very, very much on edge about all that, as I was a lot with chopper sounds too, helicopter sounds. You'd always be looking, then ducking underneath something, hiding. There's a tear gas attack at the school. I remember Mum telling me, she laughs at it now, but at the time it was horrible for her. She came in, she's got the car to come pick us up, jumped out of the combi van, came running into the school straight into the middle of a tear gas.
Wow.
And she's just gone, my eyes, and stuff like that. So the worst thing about all that, and a couple other minor incidents that happened over there, now it gives me anxiety with the COVID pandemic, and I can't wear face masks.
Yeah.
I'm terrified of having my face covered up and not being able to breathe freely. So, yeah, that's probably an effect that I only just recently understood. I know in the past there's been times when, as a kid, you're playing games and you got kids jumping on top of you. I was very, very scared. Like, get off me quickly. I need to breathe. And I never really understood why that was until recently. Another quite traumatic event that happened to us was down in Vung Tau. One weekend, we occasionally would go down there for a weekend away. That's where a lot of Australian soldiers were based, at a base down in Vung Tau. There'd be barbecues on the beach and swimming and stuff like that. And we were supposed to go home at night, but we couldn't go home. The base went on the red alert as BC was sighted in the area. And so we actually basically had to bunk down in the bunkers with there was a team of Navy divers that we spent the night with. And in one of my trips back recently, my friend took me up to the VC base up in the mountains that looked over Vung Tau.
Wow.
And he says, this is how close they were, mate. And I said, you're kidding.
Wow.
It was scary. It was absolutely scary.
Wow.
So, yeah. Down the streets, you always had the white mice to the police and the soldiers and that carrying armed weapons around, and sandbagged and barbed wire fences, and that was quite often. There's all sorts of ordnance just laying around the place. It's but in saying that, you thought you were just in a normal society. because people were still going to shop. We'd go to the movies, you'd go to school, you'd get in a taxi, go down the road, the local life went on.
Right.
But it was obvious around you that it wasn't normal.
Yeah. So you've touched on about the PTSD that you suffered and so forth.
Yep.
So I understand that your dad, sorry to bring this up, committed suicide from suffering from PTSD. Can you elaborate on your dad's experience with the disorder and tell me who else in your family? You have mentioned yourself, and what sort of medical assistance have you or your brothers or sisters actually looked for, and was it helpful?
Okay. With Dad, you've got to remember it was 25 years ago that he committed suicide. So 96, December 96, 21st of December. Never forget it. PTSD wasn't known. Doctors. He went to a number of doctors. Nobody actually had any idea what was wrong with him. He became a diabetic. They just thought, it's your diabetes that's causing you these problems. He used to complain a lot of, this is probably more the anxiety side of it coming out, the way I know it now. But the tunnel vision, the pain, and all he could just see was just narrow things in front of him, and he had to get away from areas, and he wouldn't go sometimes to things. Like if he wasn't feeling right, he wouldn't go. And then the other side of that with Dad was when he had people that he worked with in the Navy back here in Australia that didn't understand or had never seen active duty or been overseas, talking to him like he was a bloody rookie, trying to tell him about this sorts of stuff. And I know a couple of his friends went through the same thing. Dad and his mate Zork would have a few drinks in the officers' mess on a Friday. And I know Dad never told me this, his mate Zork did after Dad passed. He said they'd sit there and have a few drinks. If we were in Vietnam, we would have done this. If we were in Vietnam, we would have done this. And one day they just cracked at him and turned around and said, well, you weren't more there, mate, so don't even try and imagine what it was like. So there was that constant side of it, which ate away at Dad. But as I said, doctors didn't recognise it all. He had all these tablets. Oh, try this, take this, take this. He literally had them in one of those containers of which day and what you had to take on it. In the end, it all got too much for him. He took his tablets with him, checked himself into a crappy hotel in Hindley Street, and just took them all at once. Mum had no idea what was going on. The next day, she got a knock on the door by a policeman. Said to her, asked her, her husband was John Charles Tavick. Yes. Showed him a photo. Said to her, sorry, ma'am, he's deceased. He's in a hotel room in Hindley Street. Looks like he's overdosed on medication. And the policeman was actually wonderful because at that stage, Dad had left the Navy, is in the Navy Reserves. And the policeman who knocked on the door apparently volunteered to do it because he knew Dad from the reserves. Wow. So he was very good about the whole thing. But yeah, Mum was just in total shock. I was at my mother-in-law's for her birthday. My sister rang me up there. It was before mobile phones, rang the home phone. And my mother-in-law answered the phone and said, oh, Michael, your sister's on the phone. She wants to talk to you. And I go, what the hell does she want? What's she want to annoy me about now? Picked up the phone and she was crying and all she said is, Dad's dead. And I got nothing else really out of her because she couldn't say anything else either. And so had to pull it all together, go down and organise everything for Mum. I don't know why I had to do it. I don't know why my brother and sister couldn't help out with that, but yeah, organised the funerals and all that, and pick up a book, show Mum what to do and all this sort of stuff. She was a wreck, and then yeah, we were down there for a couple of days and flew back on Christmas Eve. But that, unfortunately, as I said, no doctor knew anything about it. Had any idea of it all. Knew what PTSD was. Fortunately, for a lot of the veterans now, they do, and they recognise the symptoms quite quickly. But as for the effect on us, that was the catalyst that tipped me over the edge. 6 months before Dad took his life, I said to him, Dad, can you write down what you did in Vietnam so we know? And he goes, you probably relate to that one pretty well, you know. I said, look, I do. I said, I want to know, you know. We spent almost 2 years there and I really don't know what you did. You know, he told me a few things at that time. He said to me, he said, yeah, Michael, he said, yeah, I remember, went to the opening of the movie The Killing Fields. I said, yeah. He said, your mum went to the premiere. He said, yeah. Yeah, we got an invite to the premiere. He said, I'm watching this movie and one of the opening sequences was of this village, supposedly in Cambodia. And he said, I looked at that village and I went, oh shit, I photographed that village.
Oh my goodness.
And used his photograph to resurrect the village for the movie. So that probably was another tipping edge for him along the way. And then he said, there was a couple of fun moments too. He said, you know, one morning he's in Saigon there, Michael, he said, I got a phone call from the guy from his, the guy in the same position for the South Korean embassy. So an assistant attaché of the South Korean embassy. Rang up and said, John, we're having a prawn and beer afternoon. Come along. Dad's gone, okay, I'll just check with my boss on that.
Yeah.
I'll get back to you. So he hung up the phone, rang his boss and told his boss, said, South Koreans invited me to a prawn and beer afternoon. What the hell does that mean? He said, go, exactly what it says. Prawns, prawn and beer. Go, have fun. So that's the good side of the whole thing. But, so I asked Dad to start writing it down and he agreed to do that. And he only got about 2 pages in and then he took his life. So I've lived with that for the last 26 years now, 25 years of my life, thinking that I caused that to escalate to a situation I couldn't handle it anymore. So after Dad had died, I said that was tipping edge for me. I lost it completely. I went into a spiral of depression. Cost me my job. People didn't care, although my national sales manager had at the time was a veteran from Vietnam. 69, 70, he was there. And he took me across to Adelaide a couple of months after Dad died, so I could see Mum and see how she was going for work-wise, and we got talking along the way. And he said, mate, I didn't know you were in Vietnam. So we chatted all about that. And he talked about guys he knew that he said, mate, they tell me that car accidents and things like that, I know these blokes, they've killed themselves. They've just driven off the road deliberately. They couldn't live with it. And I asked him one day, I said to him, Reggie, I said, mate, how did you survive? He goes, mate, I don't know. Thick skin? I don't know. He said, you got no idea. I went to see a psychologist and I told him the whole situation, that Dad overdosed and his pills and all that stuff. And you know what the bloody idiot said to me?
What did he say?
We've got medication here that might make you feel better. And I said, are you listening to me, mate? You know, really? You want me to take pills? That's what killed my dad.
Did you pick him up and throw him up against the wall, mate, or what?
Yeah, I wanted to. So I walked out and then I had to try another one. So I went through a couple of psychologists back then, and eventually I found one that just listened to me. Maybe you need to just talk about this a bit more. And I've taken that on board all those years later, and that's why I'm talking to you today about this whole thing. Anybody who wants to sit down and listen, mate, I'll tell them the story. Whether they want to believe it or not, I don't give a rat's about, to be honest. But so I suffered all of that at various times. I don't know how many people in this group of ours, this lovely family of ours, have been at the bottom end of depression and know what it's like. And I hear stories about people just become alcoholics from it all. I tried to drink. I couldn't even drink. I went through, I'd have a beer I changed beers 4 times, trying something. Every time I'd take a sip of it, I bought cans, I bought bottles, I put it in glasses, I tried different ways. It tasted like crap to me, and I just had to throw it out. I think I was very lucky in that respect. I was at that stage. I don't know whether people have felt this time when you're so bloody tired, but you can't sleep. So at night you toss and turn, you just don't sleep, and in the middle of the day you're exhausted and you just fall asleep for a little while because you're just not sleeping at night. You're so hungry, you want to eat, but you can't even make up your mind what you want to bloody well eat. It's just a matter of getting something out of the fridge and putting it in your mouth, but I couldn't even make that decision. I think now able to discuss all this openly with people, and I don't think I could have done that had I not gone to the bottom and then come back up. As I said, my sister and brother haven't accepted or acknowledged anything about it. So my brother would sometimes live like a hermit, and I know now that he's suffering at times. Then he'd come out of it and he'd be friendly and all that stuff, and he'd disappear again. My sister's just, to be honest, just been a bitch to everybody and everything. I think that's her way of dealing with things. I know her children have also suffered. My brother has never married, so he hasn't had children. I know my sister's middle child, the son of hers, he's lost a job and he's suffering badly from depression. Both of my children have seen psychologists. My son, when he spoke to psychologists about my upbringing, my father and all that, he said, mate, totally understand. He said, you're a man. He said he might as well have been in the army, been a veteran, because the impact on him is exactly the same. And I think that bloke was the first psychologist that said something sensible to any of us. You know, like, it actually made me feel better.
Yeah, I can understand
because
that.
as you probably know, Trevor, and some of the other people can relate to growing up, and then you have these issues, and you try to say, oh, it's because I was in Vietnam as a child and stuff like that. They just laugh at you. Or, you know, like for you, if you say, because my dad was a veteran in Vietnam, they laugh at you and think it's got nothing to do with you, mate. Grow up, be tougher.
What do you think other people's perceptions are of the Vietnam War and of veterans themselves? And you said that you think the history books have got it wrong and you like to rewrite that. What do you mean by that statement? That's huge, man.
Journalists back then were wonderful in portraying as much as they possibly could and telling the truth of what was going on, as far as they were allowed. Now, with the history books, a lot of people that I've spoken to don't even understand how the conflict came about. And that's the sad thing. We were just railroaded into and I call it a conflict because there was no declaration of war ever for the whole almost 20 years that the Americans were in the country. But let's just go 15 years from 60 to 75. There was no declaration of war. There was a conflict. What it was called a lot was a police action. You know, a bit like Korea, very similar sort of thing. No declaration of war. But it's the history before that which created this situation that we're in. And that's what it is out there, and you can read up on it and understand it all. But when I was a child growing up and when my children went to school, because I did ask them about it, you know, like if you're doing history, you're going to do Vietnam War and stuff like that. And and what they were taught, and they'd bring stuff home to me, and I'd just laugh at it and go, okay, well, that's 1% of it. What about the rest of it? They're going to tell you everything? You know, they're not. I've actually asked people in Vietnam about it too when I've been there. I met this lady and a family 3 or 4 years ago. So where are you from? She said, oh, we live in Vung Tau. I said, oh, I'm going there in a couple of weeks. And she said, oh, that's nice. I said, yeah, I'm going to go up to Long Tan. She goes, oh, Long Tan. Oh, that was bad for you Australians. You lost 74 soldiers. And I said, what? She said, yeah, 74 died there. I said, no, 18. She goes, no, 74. I said, no, 18. So we marched into the War Memorial together, showed her the thing, and she looked at it, she read it, and went, oh, propaganda. She was from the north. They were told that they defeated the Australians, and the Australians lost 74 soldiers.
What?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That was what she was told as a child. Now, she's 3 or 4 years older than me. So she was a child in Hanoi, going to school and all that at the time. And she said, that's what we were told. And I just, wow, and now she knows the truth.
Wow.
But it took, 50 odd years later for her to find the truth. So there's instances like that, I think that need to be straightened out. So the history side of things with Vietnam and how the conflict started began more with the French occupation. Before that, the Chinese had often tried to occupy Vietnam. I mean, it is a gold mine of land. It's a narrow strip of land that's got raw materials. It's got the rice and Mekong Delta is the rice bowl, one of the rice bowls of the world, the second biggest producer of rice in the world down there. You can grow anything. It's an ideal country for things. The Chinese, for decades or hundreds of years, never relented, never lost that. Then the French came along and took over in Indochina. Well, Indochina is a word you see a lot in Vietnamese history, which is Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So the Vietnamese were basically sick and tired of having people trying to take over their country. So then they started their little guerrilla tactics against the French. And then the Second World War came, and then the Chinese, Japanese, all these people coming there. So they just sort of sat back and waited to see the outcome of it all. End of the Second World War, the French wanted back into Southeast Asia. They were weakened, as we know, from the Second World War with the Germans. But they sat around a table in Geneva back then. So it was the Russians, I think, the French, British, the Americans. And they divided up the world. So these people, their colonies, the British Empire and the French colonies and stuff like that, they tried to give them back to them. So they didn't consult any of these countries. They said, okay, all right, France, you can go back and you take North Vietnam. We'll put the British will go into South Vietnam, and we'll make it a separate country. So there's a lot of angst about that, as you can imagine. The poor Vietnamese had just gotten rid of the Japanese and the Chinese again, and the French come marching back in. We all know how that ended at Dien Bien Phu in 1954 for them, not very well. But that was the beginning of the Viet Minh from Ho Chi Minh. And his faithful and brilliant General Nguyen Giap, who was absolutely brilliant at these guerrilla tactics and the warfare. So the French tried to take it over like a blitzkrieg through Europe. The Vietnamese just hit back in the villages and back in the jungles.
How does one get involved? How can one find out what you actually do in regards to these tours?
Well, I'll start with how it all came about. First of all, for years, a mate of mine said to me, I need to go back to Vietnam after Dad had died. And I was terrified to do so. One thing, I didn't want to tarnish the memories. I didn't know what to expect there either. So eventually, I think it's about 5 years ago, it's only about 5 years ago now, my wife's boss was going to Thailand for his wife's 60th birthday. They invited us along. So he said, okay, we'll go. And I said to my wife, I said, look, let's go to Saigon. Let's go to Saigon before or after. I don't care which way we do it, because it's not that far away. And we're going to be there. Let's just do it. And we're picked up by the car. We're driving through town. I'm just looking out at this and going, wow, this place has just changed. It's so, built up, so many buildings, and it's just blowing me away. Then we go past Notre Dame Cathedral down what is now Dong Quoi Street, which used to be called Tuzo Street back in then, and was the Rue Catnat back when the French were there. Driving, I just broke down. I just like I'm now, just in tears. We're going to get a tour. We're going to get up to Cu Chi, stuff like that. So we went down to the desk and organised this tour. This is after walking around, looking at places and finding my old home and old school and stuff like that.
You're saying something about anyone in the group that wants to organise a tour to reach out to you?
Anybody, to reach out to me. I'll let you know what I need to know, and I'll get it organised through Thomas. Thomas Travel Vietnam is his company over there. With Thomas, he doesn't want to put you in backpackers area, so 3 stars or up hotels, take you anywhere you want to go. Now, you jump on his, anybody who does want to do it, just jump on his website and have a look. But we can organise tours for the DMZ zone up at Kong Tree Province, where Khe all that sort of places are, which is up central Vietnam near Hue. You leave out of Hue. Tours around Hue, unbelievable place, Hue. Anybody who knows the history of Tet Offensive and what went on there prior to that as well and afterwards, it's a chilling place. I remember walking across the bridge to the Perfume River there the first time I went away, and I just felt these chills up and down my spine. It's almost like the hundreds of thousands of souls that was dead bodies that are there just calling out to you in a way. Beautiful place. So do tours of that. Even Hanoi, Halong Bay, all this stuff, Phu Chi, Mekong Delta, and out to Long Tan, Nui Dat, which we've spoken about to get out there. So they're doing some works around Nui Dat and it might not be there too much longer, which would be a shame. They don't seem to care about it. It was very important for us. I'll tell you another funny story about that, mate, in Hanoi, with my mate, his partner, my wife. We were walking through Hanoi to go to Ho Chi Minh Mausoleum. So there's a lot of the North Vietnamese history is there in Hanoi, and it's very important, I think, to go and have a look at that in regards to this conflict. The old Hanoi Hilton and all is still there, a little part of that as well. Yeah. But we're walking past an army base, a Vietnamese army base in Hanoi, and there's an armed soldier on the gate.
Wow.
And my mate's just walking along, and I've sort of just pulled back behind him a little bit. I'm a little bit, hang on. And he looks at it. We get up to him, and he goes, he waves and smiles and said, "Hi, how are you? Have a great day." And I just went, wow, how good's that?
Yeah.
That is just amazing. And one of the things, mate, that I've learned from going back to Vietnam, and I've been back 6 times in the last 5 years, with my family, took my kids on the 50th anniversary of me going the first time. But one of the things that I've learned from so many of the people over there is that the Vietnamese don't hold a grudge. Okay. They moved on. They move on from it all. Yes, it's part of their history that's there and they can't change that. They prefer it not to be there. They want to move forward. They want to embrace the Western world, all the technology. They got bloody Starbucks over there starting to pop up, which the Vietnamese don't. The young ones will have that, but the older Vietnamese love their Vietnamese coffee. It's stronger and better. They got some McDonald's starting to pop up as well, and also they moved on from it all. They don't want to remember it. A few people talk about it, and that's the important thing. So anybody in our family or anybody listening to this who knows a veteran from Vietnam and they go, I don't want to get back there, I encourage them to go back and see the place now and talk to the people. The people there are so accepting, especially of Australians. See the city centre, there's this Texco big tower there as well. Set it off in the distance as you're flying in, and that's when the smile comes on my face. Wow. Sometimes I think I'm home, So for the children and their fathers, and I do say to the children of Vietnam veterans too, you should go. You should go and absorb yourself into the place, absorb the atmosphere of what is Vietnam, what it's like, what the people are like, the hustle and bustle. I lost my smell there when I was 6 years old. When I had meningitis. I don't know how. I can't smell it. The people talk about the smells of it all. And some are tolerable, some are good. But just go there and then, go out to Nui Dat and Long Tan and go to Vung Tau where your father's probably spent most of their time. Just experience it all.
Well, let's hope that this. Yeah, let's hope that this COVID buggers off pretty soon and we can get a big trip with all us COVVs from our wonderful group, and we can all head over there as a big tour, and you can be our number one guide and take us through all the locations, mate. What type of services, in your opinion, should be made available specifically for us, the children of Vietnam veterans?
I think everything that's available to a veteran.
Yeah.
I can't see how the government can just sort of go, put a line there and go, no, you're just a child. We all know the effects that are ongoing for generations. You know, first, second, you know, I've got a grandson now, and I'm scared that some of the things that might affect him through the generations should be available to the children.
Yeah.
Simply, especially the medical side of things, the psychological services and stuff like that. You know, it's just cruel. We've all had to live through it. You know, we've all had to move every couple of years, be uprooted from schools and homes and friends and moved on. And how the government can sit back and just ignore that and go, oh, that doesn't have an effect on the children. That alone has a massive effect on a lot of kids.
Yeah, 100%.
You all know, everybody in the group knows about that, knows what it's like and that. And again, I say I loved every minute of that, you know.
Yeah.
I was very proud of that my father served his country in the way he did. You know, I think we're all proud of that. But don't ignore it. The government just ignores us, ignores a lot of them too. So, yeah, that's what I'd love to see. All your life, you've probably had these issues as you've grown up.
Yeah.
And there's other people in that group that are the same.
Yeah.
But no help for us. Why?
Hopefully we get in contact with the right people who will really open up those lines of communications with our government here in Australia, the governments over in America, and don't forget all our brothers and sisters across the ditch from us in New Zealand too.
Yeah.
You know, that we can open up all the communication channels. So, Michael, I just want to thank you so much for your time for appearing on our Vietnam Veterans Children Worldwide video podcast. Mate, your heartfelt stories, the how you've educated us on some of the things that we've got told in the past that weren't 100% true. I just thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for sharing all those experiences with us.
Mate, it's been a pleasure, and I really thank you for putting this together, for creating this family that we all feel comfortable in, for doing this great merch. Fantastic. You know, and just trying to take this message out to the world. Look, mate, what you've done, I can't put words to it. You know, I'm very proud to know you.
Mate, you're making me tear up a bit.
Mate, there's 1,000 other people in this group that probably feel the same way for the work you've done, and just keep going, and we'll support you all the way.
Mate, I thoroughly appreciate those words.
Let's get a group over there. We'll all go over there, and we'll track down some ARVN children as well.
Yeah. Thank you once again, mate, for being a part of our video podcast today.
Thank you.
If you're a child of a Vietnam veteran, you can join our exclusive family via the link below. Here you'll find kindness, understanding, and hopefully lifelong friendships like I have with Michael here. Be safe, be well, and please remember to reach out to any of the professional services that are listed below should you need them. Our parents went to war, but we endured the fight. See you next time.